Hello and welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles. Today I'm doing a follow-up to a video I did a little while back when I talked about authors that I wanted to give a second chance. So if you haven't seen that video, I will have it linked in the cards and in the description. In that video, I talked about 5 authors that I had read from and didn't necessarily love, but I really wanted to give them a second shot. You know, sometimes the author grows and you end up liking their work more, or maybe they write in a different genre and that just works out better. So I decided to put it to the test. So I will talk about the books that I read from them the first time, the books that I read to give them a second chance, and if I would read anything from them again in the future. The first author on this list is Jasmine Guillory. I originally started The Wedding Date. I ended up DNFing it somewhere around about a quarter of the way through, which is typically when I DNF a book. I also just am not a fan of racism in my romance because why does anybody need that? And the premise honestly did sound interesting. It's about 2 people who meet in an elevator and the guy needs a date to his ex-girlfriend's wedding, I think, something like that. Sounded interesting, sounded a little messy, thought I was gonna enjoy it, did not. Then Robin had recommended that I read While We Were Dating as a part of my 12 Recs by 12 Friends, and I did enjoy that book. I rated it 3.5 stars. This one is about an actress who ends up dating sort of like a workplace romance. He's not like a producer, but I think he works in marketing, and so sort of balancing that workplace relationship and still being professional. And I enjoyed it overall, but I've come to the conclusion that Jasmine Guillory is not for me. Romance is a genre that I really struggle to get into, and I just know that there are better romance authors out there, so no, I will not pick up anything else by Jasmine Guillory. The next author on this list is Kosoko Jackson, and this is the most surprising outcome. I had an arc of I'm So Not Over You, which is about 2 men who are exes, and one of them asks the other to pretend to be in a relationship with him while his parents are in town. I DNF'd this book at 5%. Robin went on to read it and told me that you don't find out why they broke up in the first place. I also just don't really see why the main character was pining over his ex, because all we know about him is that he's rich and good looking, and I don't feel like that's enough. That's just my personal opinion. So I ended up picking up Survive the Dome, which came out I think last year in 2022, and it's a sci-fi, and it talks about a dome being placed over Baltimore, and there's police brutality, and it's super high tech, and there's still a little bit of a romance subplot, but that wasn't the main focus of it. 5-star read. I absolutely fucking loved it. And I guess I've never really had this experience where I hate an author in one genre and then they go to something else and it's like one of the best things that I've ever read, but I really enjoyed the experience of reading that book. So if Kosoko Jackson writes another sci-fi or maybe a fantasy, I will definitely read it, but another romance I will stay away from. Next, we have Tessa Bailey. I read Fix Her Up a few years back. I had planned to do a drunk series review of the Hot and Hammered series, but I decided to DNF it altogether. I did not enjoy Fix Her Up. I rated it 2 stars. Just the way that the main character was treated, the way that things were said, how some of the scenes were written, I just didn't love it. However, I decided to pick up It Happened One Summer because a lot of people really love that book and have talked about it. In this one, we have like a very rich, spoiled girl who kind of gets thrown out on her own at some point. However, at this point, she's kind of the same age as me, in her late 20s, and having a main character who just seemed to lack basic life skills and common sense didn't work out for me. I ended up DNFing It Happened One Summer, maybe around 20% or so, and I don't think that Tessa Bailey is for me, not only because I dislike her books and her characters, but also the whole situation with that one cover, Perfect Vacation or Killer Vacation, whatever, and how she never really addressed it. I just didn't like it. It felt a little shady. So yeah, Tessa Bailey is an author that I will never read from again. The next author on this list is Nic Stone. I read Odd One Out when I was in college, and it sounded really good because it's about this friend group and some of them have feelings for each other, and overall the message was supposed to be about how sexuality can be fluid and things like that, and I get where she was going, but the execution did not work for me. I rated that book 2 stars. If I were to read that again as an adult, it would get a lower rating. The book that I was planning to read to give her a second chance was Dear Martin. I had heard good things about it and it was gifted to me by a friend, so I do have a physical copy, and because it was a gift, I may end up reading it at some point. However, I am not prioritizing it, nor do I really care to read anything else by Nic Stone because there's been a lot of controversy around this author. She has said and done some things that are very insensitive, and I am not a fan of supporting problematic authors and ignoring the harm that they have done to communities. So I just don't care anymore, and she's on the list of authors that I will likely never read from again. Like I said, I might give Dear Martin a try, but I don't really plan on keeping it at this point. And the last author on this list is Gailey. When The Echo Wife came out, I was really excited about it because it sounded so good. It sounded like a sci-fi Lifetime movie where the scientist's ex-husband is married to a clone of her, and then when the husband ends up dead, they have to work together. It sounded so great. I was really excited about it. Unfortunately, I ended up rating it 1.5 stars. I do have a junk book review of that, so I'll have it linked in the cards and in the description. And there were elements of it that I appreciated, elements that I thought were really cool, but overall the reading experience was not enjoyable. Because I don't really know much about Gailey, I'm not familiar with her other work, I decided to look at Goodreads to see what her highest rated book was, and at the time it was Magic for Liars. So I ended up getting the audiobook of that and I DNF'd it. That one is about twins who are grown up. One of them has magical powers, the other one doesn't, but they end up being in the same place at the same time while one of them is investigating something. And the main character is the one that doesn't have magic, and she very clearly resents her sister for having magic, but tries to make it seem like she doesn't. And we really hadn't even gotten into the crux of the story, but I just didn't care anymore. The most exciting thing that I read throughout everything that I did get through was the prologue. So I just didn't feel like it was worth it. Gailey definitely is not for me. So was this an endeavor worth it? Looking at the statistics, no, it was not. The only author that I ended up liking out of this was Kosoko Jackson, and all the others, not so much. Would I do it again? Possibly, but I think it would have to be with authors that I gave a better rating, maybe like a 3 or higher, since a lot of these were either DNFs or 2 stars. It was fun, but I would have to make some better choices next time because this was rough, honestly. Fun, but still rough. So that is my follow-up for authors that I gave a second chance. Let me know if you have read any of these authors, if there are authors that you are considering giving a second chance. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.